The stars looked different from here. Captain Tae-ho Kim stood at the large window of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. The Dauntless, Earth's newest and most advanced ship, had traveled farther than any human before. "Captain, we're picking up signals," said Jin-Woo Lee, looking up from his screen. His dark eyes were wide with excitement. "It's not random. It's a pattern." Tae-ho nodded and walked to the main control panel. After years of searching empty space, they had found something. "Can we tell what it is?" "Not yet, sir, but it's definitely artificial." The crew of 30 people grew quiet. This could be it. First contact with alien life. Humans had wondered for centuries if they were alone in the universe. Now they might have their answer. "Dr. Park to the bridge," Tae-ho called over the ship's speakers. Minutes later, Dr. Hana Park arrived. She was Earth's top expert on possible alien biology and first contact protocols. "We have a signal," Tae-ho told her. "It's coming from the third planet in this system." Hana's eyes lit up. "After all this time," she whispered. She had spent her whole career preparing for this moment. "Should we answer it?" Jin-Woo asked. "Yes," Tae-ho decided. "Send the standard greeting message. Let them know we come in peace." The crew waited, hardly breathing. Earth had only developed faster-than-light travel 5 years ago. The Dauntless was on its first deep space mission. No one knew what to expect. 3 hours later, they got a reply. "It's a match to our transmission pattern," Jin-Woo reported. "They understand. And look, visual, data incoming." The main screen flickered to life. Everyone on the bridge gasped. The aliens were like nothing humans had imagined. They resembled large insects, with complex exoskeletons and multiple limbs. Their bodies were mostly dark green with streaks of blue. Multiple compound eyes reflected the light of their own cameras. "This is Captain Tae-ho Kim of the Earthship Dauntless," Tae-ho said clearly. "We come with peaceful intentions." The alien in the center moved forward. When it spoke, its voice was translated by the ship's computer. "Greetings, humans. I am Supreme Overlord Vex of the Staen Dominion. Your arrival was expected." Tae-ho and Hana exchanged looks. "Expected? We would be honored to meet with you in person," Tae-ho replied carefully. "Yes. You will land at the coordinates we send. A small party only. We welcome you to the Galactic community." The screen went dark. "Can we trust them?" Jin-Woo asked what everyone was thinking. Hana spoke up. "We have to try. This is why we came. First contact was always going to be risky," Tae-ho agreed. "Prepare the landing shuttle. Dr. Park, you're with me. Jin-Woo, you'll come too. Everyone else stays aboard the Dauntless on high alert." The planet's surface was rocky and dry under a purple-tinted sky. The shuttle landed near a massive structure that looked like a mountain of metal and stone combined. A group of the insect-like Staen waited for them. "Welcome," said one that appeared to be Vex. "Many cycles have passed since we last greeted new spacefaring life." "You've met other species?" Hana asked, her scientific curiosity taking over. "Many," Vex replied. "The galaxy is full of life. Your kind is young." The humans were led inside. The structure. It was cool and dimly lit with strange smells and sounds. The walls seemed almost alive, pulsing with a faint glow. "This is amazing," Hana whispered to Tae-ho. "Their technology must be thousands of years ahead of ours." The Staen showed them sleeping quarters and offered food that their scans showed was safe for humans to eat. Everything seemed peaceful and friendly. The Staen answered their questions about their society and technology. They were an ancient race, they explained, who had explored the galaxy for millions of years. But something felt wrong to Tae-ho. The Staen were too interested in Earth, its population, resources, and defenses. While Jin-Woo continued talking with their hosts, Tae-ho pulled Hana aside. "Ask to see their biological research," he whispered. "You're a scientist. They won't question it." Hana nodded and approached Vex. "As a xenobiologist, I would be fascinated to learn about Staen biology. Do you have research facilities I could visit?" Vex's antennae twitched slightly. Of course, science is to be shared. While Jin Woo remained with the main group, Hana and Tai Ho were taken to a different section of the massive structure. Here the walls were lined with containers. Inside each one floated preserved specimens, and many looked like intelligent beings. Hana gasped softly. "These aren't just animals," she whispered to Taeho. "These were sentient species." Their guide, a smaller Staen, explained proudly. "These are records of our encounters. Each species contributed to our knowledge." "Contributed?" Taeho asked carefully. "Yes, all life has purpose in serving the Dominion." When they were alone again, Hana's hand shook. "Taeho, I think these species weren't allies. They were food, test subjects. The Staen didn't just meet them, they consumed them." "We need to warn Earth," Taeho said quietly. "We leave tonight," but it was already too late. As they made their way back to their quarters, alarms began to sound throughout the structure. A Staen voice announced, "Human vessels detected approaching Staen space. Defensive measures engaged." "What other human vessels?" Jin Woo asked when they found him. "The Dauntless is the only ship out this far." Taeho's communicator beeped. It was the Dauntless. "Captain, 3 colony ships just appeared in the system. They're not responding to hails, and the Staen ships are moving to intercept."
Them!
The colony ships. Earth had launched them months before the Dauntless, but they were slower. They must have finally reached this system, with thousands of sleeping colonists aboard. "We need to go. Now," Taeho ordered. They ran for their shuttle, but Staen guards blocked the way. "You will remain," said Vex, appearing behind them. "The harvesting has begun." Jin Woo pulled out his weapon. "Run," he shouted to Taeho and Hana. "I'll hold them off." Jin Woo, "No," Taeho yelled, but more Staen were coming. "Save Earth!" Jin Woo fired at the ceiling, causing debris to fall between them and the Staen. "Go!" Taeho grabbed Hana's arm and they ran to the shuttle. As they lifted off, they saw Jin Woo being overwhelmed by Staen guards. From orbit, they watched in horror as the 3 colony ships, each carrying 5,000 sleeping humans hoping to start a new life, were torn apart by Staen weapons. "They let species develop," Hana said, tears in her eyes as they docked, with the waiting Dauntless. "They wait until we're worth harvesting, then they attack." "Set course for Earth, maximum speed," Taeho ordered as soon as they reached the bridge. "We have to warn them." As the Dauntless fled the system, Staen ships followed. One of the crew asked the question everyone was thinking: why didn't they just destroy us too? "They want us to lead them to Earth," Taeho realized. "They want to know where we came from." The Dauntless made a series of random jumps to lose their pursuers before finally heading home. When they reached Earth, Taeho delivered the terrible news to world leaders. Humanity faced extinction from an enemy that had done this many times before. 3 days later, the first Staen ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. Earth had only days to prepare for war. "This ends differently," Taeho promised as Earth's governments united for the first time in history, forming the United Earth Defense Force. Jin Woo's sacrifice won't be for nothing. Humans won't be just another specimen in their collection. The final war for humanity's survival had begun. 3 months had passed since the first Staen ships entered Earth's solar system. General Taeho Kim looked at the holographic map showing the current battle lines. The outer colonies on Mars and Europa had fallen. Earth was next. "They're moving, faster than we expected," said Sumin Yoon, the young engineer who had been called in to help design new weapons. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. "At this rate, they'll reach Earth in 2 weeks." Taeho nodded grimly. After his return from Staen space and Jin Woo's sacrifice, Earth's nations had put aside their differences to fight together. But it wasn't enough. The Staen ships were too powerful, their weapons too advanced. "Any word from Dr. Park?" he asked. "She's still in her lab," Sumin replied. "She hasn't slept in 3 days." Taeho left the command center and walked to the research wing. Dr. Hana Park had been studying the biological samples they'd managed to collect from dead Staen soldiers. If anyone could find a weakness, it was her. He found her bent over a microscope, her long black hair tied back messily. She didn't look up when he entered. "Hana," he said gently, "you need to rest." "I can't," she replied, finally turning to face him. "Not while Jin Woo is still out there. Not while those things are getting closer to Earth every day." Taeho placed a hand on her shoulder. They both felt responsible for Jin Woo's capture. "Do you think he's still alive?" "Yes," Hana said firmly. "And I think I know why. Look at this." She showed him slides of Staen tissue under the microscope. "See how the cells connect? The Staen aren't individuals like us. They're a hive mind. Each Staen is like a cell in one giant organism. That explains their coordination in battle," Taeho realized. "They act as one." "Exactly. And I think they're keeping Jin Woo alive to study us, to learn how we think." A loud alarm interrupted them. They rushed back to the command center. "Staen attack on the moon base," shouted an officer. "They've broken through the outer defenses." On the large screen, they watched as Staen ships swarmed around Earth's moon. The human defenders fought bravely, but they were outnumbered. One by one, the defense platforms fell silent. "Why are they focusing on the moon?" Sumin wondered aloud. "It has no strategic value." Taeho studied the Staen attack pattern. "They're not random. Look, they attack in perfect formation, always at our strongest points." "Because that's what makes sense to them," Hana said suddenly. "They're a hive, thinking as one. They expect us to defend our most valuable assets with our strongest forces. So, they hit strength with greater strength," Taeho mused. Then his eyes widened. "That's it. Su-min, can your team get those new shield generators working?" "Maybe, but they're still experimental," the young engineer replied. "We can't power more than a dozen ships with them. That's all we need. Listen carefully." 2 days later, a small fleet of Earth ships positioned themselves in front of the abandoned Saturn mining station. As expected, the Staen sent a large force to attack what they assumed was a key human stronghold. The Earth ships held their positions, their new shields glowing bright blue as they absorbed the Staen weapons fire. Meanwhile, Taeho led a separate fleet in a surprise attack on the Staen supply lines near Jupiter. Without orders from their central command, the Staen ships there reacted slowly and in confusion. "It's working." Sumin's voice came through the comm system. "Their attack patterns are breaking down." For the first time since the war began, humans won a clear victory. The Staen lost 30 ships while Earth lost only 5. It wasn't much, but it gave people hope. In the following weeks, Earth forces adopted new tactics. Instead of defending in large groups, they split into small, independent units. Each captain was free to make their own decisions in battle. The Staen, used to fighting as one coordinated force, struggled to adapt. "They don't understand unpredictability," Hana explained during a strategy meeting. "Their strength is also their weakness." Sumin's shield technology improved with each battle. Earth ships could now withstand Staen weapons long enough to strike back. Human factories worked day and night to build more ships and weapons. But the Staen were learning, too. They began to copy human tactics, sending smaller groups to attack from multiple directions, and there were simply so many of them. Deep inside a Staen research vessel, Jin Woo Lee struggled to stay conscious. The pain was unbearable. For months, the Staen had performed experiments on him, testing his limits, studying how humans think. But they didn't realize that Jin Woo was studying them too. Through the fog of pain, he watched how they communicated, how they moved, how they thought. He noticed that individual Staen were less intelligent when separated from others. They needed the hive mind to function properly. "Subject shows high pain tolerance," said the Staen scientist in its clicking language. Jin Woo had learned to understand some of it, preparing for brain tissue extraction. As the Staen reached for a sharp tool, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. The room shook violently. The Staen rushed out, leaving Jin Woo strapped to the table. Minutes later, a different Staen entered. This one was injured. Green blood, oozing from a wound in its side. It looked at Jinwoo with what seemed like curiosity rather than clinical interest. Human, it clicked weakly. Why do you fight when you will lose? Jinwoo was surprised. No Staen had spoken to him directly before. Because we're not all the same. Jinwoo replied, his voice rough from screaming. Each human is different. That's our strength. The Staen moved closer. Different is inefficient. Different is survival, Jinwoo countered. When something kills one of us, it doesn't kill our mind. We adapt, we change. The ship shook again. The injured Staen looked toward the door, then back at Jinwoo. To Jinwoo's shock, it reached out and released his restraints. Why? Jinwoo asked as he struggled to sit up. I am dying. Cut off from the hive, I want to understand. Different. With that, the Staen collapsed. Jinwoo didn't waste his chance. He grabbed the Staen's weapon and limped out of the room. The ship was under attack by humans. Somehow, Earth forces had found the research vessel. As he made his way through the chaos, Jinwoo collected every bit of information he could. He saw maps showing the location of the Staen homeworld. He heard officers discussing their fear of human unpredictability. Most importantly, he learned that the Staen had never faced a species that fought back so fiercely. On Earth, the mood was grimly determined. Despite clever tactics and new technology, humans were still losing ground. The Staen had launched a massive attack on Mars' colony, killing millions. Taiho and Hana waited anxiously as a shuttle docked at the main Earth space station. Against all odds, a rescue mission had succeeded in retrieving something precious from a Staen research vessel. The shuttle door opened. Supported by two soldiers, Jinwoo Lee stepped out. He was thin and covered in scars, but his eyes burned with purpose. Jinwoo, Hana cried, rushing forward to hug him gently. We thought you were dead, Taiho said, clasping his friend's shoulder. Jinwoo shook his head. Not dead. Learning. His voice was hoarse but steady. And I've learned how to beat them. Pulled out a data device containing everything he'd seen on the Staen ship. Their homeworld. Their weakness. Their fear. Fear? Taiho asked. What do the Staen fear? Jinwoo's scarred face formed a grim smile. Us. They fear humans because we're chaos to their order. And I know how to use that fear against them. For the first time in months, real hope bloomed in Taiho's heart. The war was far from over, but now they had a chance. A desperate edge that might just save humanity. Admiral Tae-ho Kim stood before the United Earth Defense Council. The room was silent as the leaders of humanity waited for him to speak. 6 months of war against the Staen had left Earth bloodied but not broken. We cannot win this war with guns alone, Tae-ho said firmly. The Staen outnumber us. Their ships are stronger. Their weapons are better. Murmurs of disagreement rose from the council members. But, Tae-ho continued, we have something they don't understand. Creativity. He nodded to Jinwoo Lee, who stepped forward. The scars from his time in Staen captivity were still visible on his face. Some nights he still woke up screaming, but his mind was sharp. The Staen are controlled by a central intelligence on their homeworld, Jinwoo explained. Cut off the head, and the body will fall. Hana Park joined them at the front of the room. We've been studying Staen biology for months, she said. Their communication uses chemical signals like pheromones. We think we can create a compound that will disrupt their connection to the hive mind. A council member frowned. You want to make a biological weapon? Not to kill them, Hana clarified. To free them. Many Staen drones might choose peace if they could think for themselves. And how do we deliver this compound? Asked another counselor. We can't even get close to their inner territories. Tae-ho pressed a button, and a hologram appeared over the table. It showed a small ship, unlike any in Earth's fleet. This is where Do-hyun Choi comes in, Tae-ho said. A slender man stepped out of the shadows. Few people knew Do-hyun. Before the war, he had been Earth's best infiltration specialist, able to blend into any environment. I've been studying Staen ships. Captured in battle, Do-hyun explained. I can modify one of our vessels to look and signal like a Staen scout ship. Their security depends on recognition codes and chemical signatures, both of which we've cracked. You want to sneak into Staen territory? The council president looked shocked. That's suicide. It's our only chance, Jinwoo argued. I've seen their homeworld in their star charts. I know where their central hive is located. A small team can get in, release Dr. Park's compound, and get out. While the main fleet creates a diversion, Taeho added, we'll launch attacks across multiple fronts, spreading their forces thin. After hours of debate, the council finally agreed. Operation Trojan, they called it, after an ancient Earth story about deception and victory. 2 weeks later, Do-hyun stood in the hangar looking at his creation. The ship had once been a human scout vessel. Now it looked exactly like a Staen ship, down to the green-blue hull markings that indicated rank in their fleet. Will it work? Asked Hana, joining him. She carried a sealed container with her biological agent. It has to, Do-hyun replied simply. I just hope my artificial pheromones fool their sensors. We only get one chance. Jinwoo and Taeho arrived, dressed in special suits designed to mask their human scent. The 4 of them would form the infiltration team. The fate of Earth depended on their success. As they prepared to board, young Mi Kang approached. She had been promoted to fleet commander and would lead Earth's forces while Taeho was gone. Good luck, she said, saluting sharply. The diversionary attacks are ready. We'll make sure they're looking elsewhere when you slip in. Taeho returned her salute. If we don't make it back, you will, Young Ma interrupted. Earth is counting. On it. The disguised ship slipped quietly through Staen space. Twice they were challenged by Staen patrols, and twice Do-hyun's fake signals and pheromone emitters fooled them. Meanwhile, Earth forces launched attacks on Staen positions near Jupiter and Saturn, drawing attention away from their true mission. Entering the Cygnus sector, Do-hyun announced. Staen homeworld ahead. They stared in awe at the view screen. The Staen homeworld was massive, covered in sprawling structures that looked like a giant hive. Thousands of ships surrounded it. How do we get through that? Jinwoo asked. Do-hyun smiled grimly. We send a distress signal, a damaged scout ship requesting emergency landing. The plan worked. They were directed to a small landing pad on the planet's surface. As they descended, Hana checked her bioagent one last time. Remember, she said, this needs to be released as close to the central hive as possible. Once on the surface, they moved quickly. Do-hyun had created small devices that emitted Staen pheromones, helping them blend in with the countless drones, moving through the hive structures. The architecture was alien and confusing. Tunnels leading in all directions, chambers filled with eggs, storage areas with the remains of conquered species. According to the maps I memorized, the central chamber should be 5 levels down, Jinwoo whispered. They descended deeper into the hive. The number of Staen increased, making it harder to move unnoticed. In one narrow corridor, a guard drone blocked their path. It studied them with compound eyes, antennae twitching suspiciously. Your pheromone signature is irregular, it clicked. In the Staen language, before they could react, the guard raised an alarm. Within seconds, more Staen appeared from side tunnels. Run, Taeho ordered. They sprinted down the corridor, firing stunners at the pursuing guards. They reached a junction, where 3 tunnels met. Split up, Do-hyun shouted. I'll draw them off. The rest of you find the central chamber. Before anyone could argue, Do-hyun ran down the left tunnel, deliberately making noise. Most of the Staen guards followed him. He's sacrificing himself, Hana whispered, her eyes wide. Let's make sure it's not for nothing, Taeho replied grimly. Jinwoo, which way? Jinwoo pointed to the right tunnel. That way should lead down to the lower levels. They moved as fast as they dared, hearing alarm. Signals echo through the hive. The entire structure seemed to vibrate with activity. They know we're here, Jinwoo said. At that moment, their communicators beeped. It was young Mi. Admiral, the Staen fleet is withdrawing from all fronts. Repeat, all Staen ships are returning to their homeworld. Taeho's face paled. They're calling everyone back to defend the hive. We're out of time. They reached a massive door blocked by 6 heavily armed Staen warriors. Unlike the drones they'd seen before, these Staen were larger, with specialized battle claws. "We can't fight through that," Hana whispered. Jinwoo studied the warriors, then pointed to a small ventilation shaft above them. "There. We can bypass them." The shaft was barely big enough for a human to squeeze through. They crawled in darkness, guided only by Jinwoo's memorized maps. Below them, they could hear the hive buzzing with activity. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber. Unlike the rest of the hive, this room was eerily quiet. In the center stood a structure that pulsed with a blue glow. Around it, floating in a clear liquid, was the largest Staen they had ever seen. "The Supreme Intelligence," Jinwoo whispered in awe. "The brain of the entire hive." Suddenly, a familiar voice spoke in their minds. "Humans, you have come far to die." They spun around to find Supreme Overlord Vex standing behind them, flanked by elite guards. "Your friend is already dead," Vex continued, referring to Do-hyun. "You will join him soon, but first I want you to understand why you failed." "We haven't failed yet," Tae-ho said defiantly. Vex made a sound like laughter. "Look around you. You are in the heart of our empire. Every Staen in the galaxy is connected to this mind. We have consumed hundreds of species before yours. What makes you think you are different?" Hana stepped forward, the container with her bioagent clutched tightly. "Because we are different, each of us is unique. We don't need a hive mind to be strong." "Individuality is chaos," Vex replied. "Inefficient, weak." "Is it?" Jinwoo asked. "Then why did you call your entire fleet back to defend this place? Why are you afraid of 4 humans?" For the first time, Vex seemed uncertain. "We are not afraid. We are cautious." "No," Tae-ho said, understanding dawning on his face. "You're terrified. Because in all your millions of years you've never faced a species that thinks like we do. Unpredictable, creative, free." Vex raised a claw. "Enough. Guards, kill them." As the Staen guards moved forward, Hana made her choice. Instead of throwing her bioagent at the Supreme Intelligence as planned, she hurled it at the control systems surrounding it. "What are you doing?" Jinwoo shouted. "Something unpredictable," Hana replied, as the container broke and a mist spread through the room. Alarms blared throughout the hive as the control systems began to short-circuit. The Supreme Intelligence writhed in its tank. "What have you done?" Vex roared, but his voice suddenly changed, becoming less certain. "Cut the strings," Hana said. "Not killed, but freed." Around them, the Staen guards stopped advancing. They looked, confused, antennae waving wildly as if searching for signals that were no longer there. Across the galaxy, Staen ships suddenly stopped in mid-battle. For the first time in their existence, millions of Staen were thinking for themselves. Chaos erupted inside the Staen central hive. Alarms blared throughout the massive structure. The Supreme Intelligence writhed in its tank, its connection to millions of Staen minds suddenly disrupted by Hana's bioagent. "What have you done?" "Supreme," Overlord Vex asked again, his voice now shaking with uncertainty. "Freed them," Hana answered, backing away from the advancing Staen leader. "Given them a choice." Tae-ho pulled Hana behind him, raising his weapon. Jinwoo did the same, both men ready to fight, but the Staen guard stood motionless, their antennae twitching in confusion. "Your guards don't know what to do without orders," Jinwoo observed. "They've never had to think for themselves." Vex clicked angrily. "This is temporary. The connection will restore itself." "Will it?" Hana challenged. "The control systems are damaged. Look around you, Vex. For the first time in millions of years, your people can choose their own path." A tremor shook the chamber. Parts of the ceiling began to crack. "The hive structure is destabilizing," Tae-ho warned. "We need to get out of here, not without finishing our mission," Jinwoo insisted. He stepped toward the Supreme Intelligence, raising his weapon. Vex moved with surprising speed, knocking Jinwoo aside. "I will not allow this." The massive Staen leader lunged at Tae-ho, who fired his weapon. The energy blast hit Vex's exoskeleton but didn't stop him. They crashed to the floor, Vex's claws slashing at Taeho's protective suit. Jinwoo scrambled to his feet and tackled Vex from behind. "Run, Hana," he shouted. "Get to the ship." Another tremor, stronger than the first, rocked the chamber. A large section of the ceiling collapsed, crushing several confused Staen guards. Hana hesitated, unwilling to leave her friends. "I won't go without you." Taeho managed to push Vex off him. "That's an order, Dr. Park. Earth needs to know what happened here." Before she could protest further, a new voice spoke through their communicators. "Admiral Kim, this is Fleet Commander Kang. Do you read me?" Taeho touched his communicator. "Young Mi, we're in the central chamber. The mission was partially successful, but we're trapped." "Hold on," Young Mi replied. "The Staen fleet is in complete disarray. We've broken through their defenses, sending extraction teams to your location now." Hope surged through Taeho. Maybe they would survive this after all. Vex, hearing this exchange, let out a high-pitched sound that might have been laughter. "You think you've won? You've only ensured your own destruction." The Supreme Intelligence began to pulse with a brighter glow. The giant Staen in the tank opened its many eyes, focusing directly on the humans. "You do not understand what you face." The Supreme Intelligence spoke directly into their minds. Its voice was ancient and cold. "The Staen are not what you think we are." Images flooded their minds, visions of a time long ago when the Staen were a peaceful species on a distant world. Then came another race, tall beings of light who altered. The Staen accelerated their evolution and programmed them to conquer and consume. "We are tools," the Supreme Intelligence continued, "created to prepare the galaxy for their return." "Who?" Hana asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "Who created you?" "The ancients. They seeded life throughout the galaxy, then selected us to harvest it when it reached sufficient advancement. We are not evil. We are fulfilling our purpose." Taeho felt cold dread fill his heart. "You mean there's something worse than you out there? Something coming back?" "Yes," Vex answered, suddenly calm. "And now you have disrupted the cycle. Without our control, the galaxy will fall into disorder. When the ancients return, they will find chaos instead of order." Another violent tremor shook the chamber. The tank holding the Supreme Intelligence cracked, fluid leaking onto the floor. "We need to go now," Jinwoo shouted, pulling Taeho away from Vex. The three humans ran for the exit as the chamber began to collapse around them. Vex made no move to follow them, standing instead beside the damaged tank, clicking softly to the dying Supreme Intelligence. They fought their way through the crumbling hive structure. Everywhere, confused Staen drones wandered aimlessly or fought with each other. Some attacked the humans on sight, while others simply watched them pass with newfound curiosity. "The bioagent worked better than I expected," Hana said as they paused, to catch their breath in a relatively stable corridor. "It didn't just disrupt their connection. It seems to have granted them individual consciousness." "Which means some might choose peace," Taeho noted. "And others might still want to kill us," Jinwoo added grimly. "We've created millions of unpredictable enemies instead of one predictable one." "Or millions of potential allies," Hana countered. Their communicators crackled to life again. "Admiral, we've located your position." Young Mi's voice came through. "Extraction team is 2 minutes from your location. Head to the eastern landing platform." Following Jinwoo's lead, they navigated through the maze of tunnels. Twice they had to fight off attacking Staen guards. Once, strangely, a Staen drone actually helped them, pointing out a safer route when their path was blocked by debris. They reached the landing platform just as an Earth shuttle touched down. Young Mi herself stepped out, firing at pursuing Staen. "Hurry!" she shouted. They sprinted for the shuttle. A Staen warrior leaped from a higher level, landing directly in front of Jinwoo. Before it could attack, Young Mi shot it square in the head. "I've got you covered," she said, helping Jinwoo aboard. Once everyone was inside, the shuttle lifted off. Through the viewport, they watched as sections of the massive hive structure began to collapse. Fires burned across the surface of the Staen homeworld. "The chain reaction is spreading," Hana observed. Without the central control systems, their whole infrastructure is failing. What about the Staen fleet? Taeho asked young me. Complete confusion, she replied. Some ships are attacking each other. Others are just drifting in space. A few are actually retreating. Jinwoo looked troubled. Did we just commit genocide? No, Hana said firmly. We gave them freedom. What they do with it is their choice. As their shuttle docked with the Earth flagship in orbit, they were greeted as heroes. But Taeho couldn't shake the unease caused by the Supreme Intelligence's final warning. We need to talk, he told young me quietly. The Staen weren't the real enemy. They were just the first wave. First wave of what? Young Mai asked, concerned by his serious expression. I don't know, Taeho admitted. But we need to prepare. This war might be ending, but I fear an even bigger one is coming. Back on the Staen homeworld in the rubble of the central chamber, something stirred. Supreme Overlord Vex pushed aside a fallen beam and emerged from the wreckage. The Supreme Intelligence was dead, its tank completely shattered. For the first time in his long life, Vex was truly alone in his mind. He looked up at the sky where the human ships were leaving. They had destroyed everything he had known, everything he had believed in. But they had also given him something he never knew he wanted. Choice. Vex clicked thoughtfully to himself. Perhaps there was more to learn from these humans than the Staen had realized. Perhaps in their unpredictability, there was a strength that even the ancients had not anticipated. The war was over, but for Vex, and for countless newly awakened Staen across the galaxy, a new, uncertain future was just beginning. 10 years had passed since the day humans broke the Staen hive mind. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Admiral Taeho Kim stood at the window of the space station Unity, looking out at the ships gathered for the historic event. Vessels of many shapes and designs floated peacefully together, human ships alongside those of former enemies and newly discovered allies. Quite a view, isn't it? Said a familiar voice behind him. Taeho turned to see Dr. Hana Park. Over the years, her work had taken her across the galaxy, studying the various species that had emerged from hiding after the Staen threat ended. Despite the distance, she and Taeho had remained close. I never thought I'd see this day, Taeho admitted. So many different species working together. Hana smiled. Humans have a talent for bringing people together. Even those who once tried to eat us. They shared a laugh at that. After the fall of the Staen hive mind, the galaxy had been in chaos. Millions of Staen drones suddenly gained individual consciousness. Some continued fighting out of confusion or habit. Others simply shut down, unable to function without the hive's guidance. But some, surprisingly, had reached out for help. Is Vex here yet? Taeho asked. His ship just docked, Hana replied. Jinwoo is meeting him. Taeho nodded. Of all the unexpected developments in the past decade, former Supreme Overlord Vex becoming an ally was perhaps the most surprising. After surviving the collapse of the central hive, Vex had gathered Staen who wanted peace. With his knowledge of Staen biology, he had worked with Hana to help his people adapt to individual existence. Together, they walked to the main conference hall where the signing ceremony would take place. The Galactic Concordat, a peace treaty, and mutual defense pact between 27 species, was about to become reality. In the hallway, they met Jinwoo Lee talking with Sumin Yoon. The former military strategist now walked with a slight limp, a reminder of his time in Staen captivity. Beside him stood a young Staen, smaller than most of its kind with blue markings on its exoskeleton. Taeho, Hana, Jinwoo greeted them with a smile. You remember Sumin, of course? And this is Tick. The young Staen made a clicking sound that the translation devices interpreted as a greeting. Honor to meet Admiral, honor to meet Doctor. Tick was one of many Staen children born after the war, the first generation to grow up with individual minds. Jinwoo had surprised everyone by adopting the orphaned Staen 5 years ago. Despite his painful history with the species, he had become a leading voice for reconciliation. How does it feel? Sumin asked Taeho. You started this journey on the Dauntless, making first contact. Now you're about to sign a peace treaty. Taeho shook his head. We all started it together, and many didn't live to see this day. They observed a moment of silence, remembering Do-hyun's sacrifice in the Staen hive, and the millions of humans and aliens who had died in the war. The doors to the conference hall opened. Inside, representatives from across the galaxy had gathered. Humans stood alongside reformed Staen. The Krell, a reptilian species that had hidden from the Staen for centuries, were there too. So were the Nuari, the ethereal beings who had revealed themselves only after the Staen threat ended. At the center of the room stood a tall, crystalline monument, a memorial to all who had died in the conflict. Young Mi Kang, now the Supreme Commander of Earth's defense forces, approached them. "It's time, Admiral." The ceremony began with speeches from each species' representatives. When it was Taeho's turn, he spoke simply and directly. 10 years ago, humans faced extinction. We fought not just for our survival, but for our right to exist as we are. Diverse, independent, sometimes chaotic, but always striving to be better. Today, we extend that same right to all beings in our galaxy. The Galactic Concordat is not just a peace treaty. It is a promise that we will defend each other's freedom. When Vex stepped forward to speak, murmurs rippled through the room. Many still remembered him as the face of the enemy. His exoskeleton showed signs of age now, but he stood tall. "The Staen were created to consume," Vex said in his clicking language, translated for all to hear. "We were tools, not truly alive. Humans did not just defeat us, they freed us. They showed us that real strength comes from diversity, not uniformity. I once called humans chaotic. Now I understand that what I saw as chaos was actually life in its truest form." One by one, the representatives signed the Concordat. As Taeho and Vex signed side by side, applause filled the hall. Later, at the reception, Hana pulled Taeho aside. Her expression was serious. "There's something I need to show you," she said quietly. "Something we found in the archives of a dead world." She led him to her laboratory on the station. On her desk lay an ancient tablet covered in symbols unlike any language Taeho had seen before. "What is it?" he asked. "A warning," Hana replied. The Krell helped translate it. It speaks of the ancients who created the Staen. They're called the Harvesters, and according to this, they return to the galaxy every 50,000 years. Taeho's blood ran cold. "How long has it been?" 49,870 years, based on our calculations. Hana's voice was steady, but her eyes showed concern. The Staen were preparing the galaxy for their return, categorizing and organizing all sentient life for easy harvesting. By disrupting the Staen, we've changed their plans, Taeho realized. Exactly. The galaxy they expected to find is now united against them. Taeho looked out the viewport at the gathered ships, former enemies, now allies. So the real war may be yet to come. Yes, Hana agreed. But this time, we won't face it alone. Taeho thought about how far they had come. From the desperate battles of the early war to this moment of unity, humans had proven themselves not just survivors, but leaders. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had found mercy when revenge would have been easier. "We should tell the others," Taeho said. "All the species need to know what might be coming." "Tomorrow," Hana suggested. "Let them have tonight to celebrate peace." Taeho nodded. They returned to the reception, where Jinwoo was teaching young Tik an old Earth game called chess. Sumin was deep in conversation with Krell engineers about new shield technology. Young Mai was discussing defense strategies with Nuari leaders. Everywhere he looked, Taeho saw different species learning from each other, working together. If the Harvesters were indeed coming, they would face a galaxy transformed, not by the Staen's forced order, but by humanity's chaotic, creative, compassionate influence. As the celebration continued, a Nuari child approached Taeho. The small, glowing being looked up at him with curious eyes. "Is it true, Admiral?" the child asked in a musical voice. "That humans saved the galaxy?" Teho smiled gently. We all saved each other, and if necessary, we'll do it again. Outside the viewport, the stars seemed to shine brighter than before. Whatever threats lurked at the edges of the galaxy, humanity and its new allies would face them together. The legacy of the Staen Wars wasn't just humanity's survival. It was the birth of a truly united galaxy. And somewhere in the vast darkness, between stars, ancient beings stirred, unaware that their carefully laid plans had been disrupted by a species they had never accounted for. A species whose strength came not from uniformity, but from embracing chaos and change. A species called human.